The throne room of the Caliph Empire was a place that inspired awe even among the most seasoned travelers of the stars. It was said that no matter how many times one entered, the crystalline walls always seemed alive, catching light from the twin suns outside and scattering it in dazzling displays. Colors shifted with every step, as though the empire itself tested whether one was worthy of beholding its splendor. Beneath the dome of refracted brilliance, however, silence reigned. A silence born not of peace, but of fear. At the heart of it all sat Princess Auralia, cloaked in white silks and veiled with threads of crystal spun so fine they glittered like starlight. She had never shown her face to anyone outside the royal family. The veiling tradition demanded it. From the moment of her birth, she had been kept hidden, her features unknown even to the most loyal attendants. The law was unyielding. She could reveal herself only to the one who first swore eternal loyalty, who dared to bond with her unseen. It was an ancient custom, tied to prophecy and superstition. Some claimed it kept the heir safe from curses or assassins. Others whispered it tested the courage of those who sought power. Whatever its origin, the tradition had shaped her entire life. Suitors had come in droves over the years. Proud nobles from Calip's inner houses, armored warlords, from border clans, scholars who recited vows from memory. They all came seeking her hand, but when faced with the veil, when forced to commit without certainty, they faltered. Some demanded to see her face first, defying tradition and earning immediate disgrace. Others hesitated, whispering excuses of honor or timing. Some even fled outright, unable to withstand the weight of the unknown. Each failure cut deep. For Auralia, it was another reminder that no one trusted her without proof. For the empire, it was a growing weakness. The Caliph's succession required a bonded heir to stand strong beside the throne. Without it, rivals would smell blood. Already, border houses tested their strength, and whispers of rebellion coiled through the empire's veins. Her father, Emperor Valin, bore the shame with silent rage. In his younger years, he had been a conqueror, expanding Caliph territory with fire and brilliance. Now, in his age, he found his legacy slipping through his hands because his daughter remained veiled and unbonded. He never blamed Auralia aloud, but she felt the weight of his disappointment every day. The court had gathered once again to witness what many believed would be another futile attempt. The great nobles lined the hall, their jeweled robes glittering beneath the shifting lights. Foreign dignitaries from allied and rival worlds had come, some to offer suitors, others to witness Calip's humiliation. The ceremony began as it always did, solemn, heavy with expectation, yet doomed to failure. Until a voice broke the silence. "I will." The words were not shouted. They were spoken evenly, with the calm certainty of someone used to making promises under pressure. Heads turned, antennae twitched, crests flared in disbelief. A single figure stepped out of the gathering, a man in a plain military uniform, his posture straight, his expression steady. He was Commander Daniel Hayes of Earth. Compared to the radiant aliens of the court, he looked unimpressive. His uniform was practical, devoid of jewels or rank insignias beyond the simple markers of service. His skin was weathered, his face ordinary by most galactic standards. And yet there was something in his bearing, a quiet strength, a refusal to shrink, that made the laughter falter for a heartbeat. "A human?" someone hissed, their frills quivering with disdain. "The ape world dares?" Others chuckled more openly. "He does not even understand our customs. He thinks this is a game." Daniel ignored them. He bowed, not deeply, not with the servility the nobles expected, but with the crisp respect of a soldier acknowledging equals. He first inclined his head toward the emperor. "Your Majesty." Then toward the veiled princess. "Your Highness. If what you seek is one willing to stand beside you, then I will." The court erupted in laughter and outrage. Voices clashed in disbelief. But amid the noise, something unexpected happened. Auralia raised her head. For years she had endured these ceremonies in silence, never speaking, never offering more than the stillness her tradition demanded. But now, at the sound of the human's words, she found her voice stirring, fragile but alive. "You would bond without knowing me, human?" she asked softly. Her voice carried like a song through the crystalline chamber, quieting the jeers. Daniel met the veil without flinching. "What matters is not your face, but who you are. I don't need to see you to know your worth." The throne room froze. Not since the Empire's founding had anyone dared answer so plainly. Every suitor before him had begged, bargained, or hesitated. This one spoke as though the veil itself was meaningless. For the first time in her life, Princess Auralia felt her voice tremble. "Then step forward, Daniel Hayes of Earth." The Caliph did not take bonds lightly. To swear eternal loyalty to the heir was not a mere formality. It was a covenant forged in fire and trial. When Daniel Hayes of Earth spoke his pledge in the throne room, the Emperor's advisors had not erupted in applause but in protest. "A human cannot be trusted with the throne," cried Lord Sereth, his jeweled crest flaring red. "He seeks to mock our traditions." "Put him to the trials," hissed another noble, voice dripping with disdain. Let the veiling prove his words false. Emperor Valen silenced them with a raised hand. His expression was unreadable, but deep in his ancient eyes flickered something that might have been curiosity. He had seen countless warriors falter, countless nobles choke on fear, yet this human had spoken without pause, without bargaining. Perhaps he deserved the chance to face the trials. The Emperor's voice rumbled like distant thunder. "Then let the human stand before the chambers. If he is false, he will break. If he is true, the veil shall decide." The courtiers stirred, and for the first time Daniel realized the full weight of what he had stepped into. The bonding ceremony was more than a vow. It was a crucible designed to test whether a soul was worthy of binding itself to Calith's heir. He was led into the first chamber, its walls alive with shifting crystal patterns that pulsed like veins of light. The chamber of echoes. Here, he was told. Illusions would strike at his mind, reflecting his doubts and fears. As the door sealed behind him, the air thickened, and forms began to emerge from the walls. Faces, hundreds of them, shifting and flickering. A woman of flawless beauty stepped forward, her features radiant, her voice like silk. "Would you pledge to me?" she asked, her smile radiant. Then her face twisted into something grotesque, her eyes bulging, mouth stretching into a maw of jagged teeth. "Or to this," she hissed. The faces swirled. Goddesses, monsters, strangers, reflections of Auralia that never were. Each demanded his loyalty. Each whispered doubts. What if she is monstrous? What if she is cursed? What if you bind yourself to regret for all your days? Daniel stood still, watching the illusions swirl. Slowly he shook his head. "Faces change, flesh fades. I didn't swear to any of you. I swore to her." The illusions wavered, confused, then shattered like glass, leaving the chamber silent. He walked forward unscathed, the courtiers watching. Through crystal scrying stones murmured in disbelief. Most suitors faltered here, some screaming, some clawing at the walls to escape. The human had walked through as if the test were nothing. The second chamber was harsher still. The trial of V. Wait. A chain of golden links was lowered across his shoulders, each one glowing faintly with power. Daniel nearly staggered when it settled upon him, its weight far heavier than it appeared. It wasn't merely metal. It was the metaphysical burden of empire, of people, of expectation. His knees threatened to buckle, but he gritted his teeth and bore it. Sweat ran down his brow, his back screamed in protest. Yet he remembered the sight of Auralia, veiled and alone, carrying the silent scorn of an entire empire. She's carried this her whole life, he muttered. If she can bear it, so can I. He took one step, then another, each echoing through the chamber. By the time he reached the end, his shoulders burned as though set aflame, but he had not fallen. The chains dissolved into light, and the doors opened. The nobles watching outside fell silent. Even Lord Sereth's mocking smile had disappeared. The final chamber was whispered of in dread, the test of fear. Here. The shadows themselves seemed alive, wrapping around Daniel like serpents, a voice, low and venomous, coiled in his ear. What if she is a monster beneath the veil? What if her touch kills? What if your children are born cursed, twisted things? Will you still bind yourself then, human? The shadows closed in, forming. Images of nightmare, alien deformities, monstrous offspring, Auralia herself weeping as crowds screamed at her ugliness. Daniel's jaw tightened. He reached out, swatting at the illusion as though brushing away smoke. Then I'll face it with her, he said flatly. The shadows hissed, writhing as though burned. They tried again. And if she brings ruin to your world, your people, your future? Daniel snorted softly. Then I'll still face it, because no one deserves to carry that kind of fear alone. The chamber went still. Slowly, the darkness retreated. The doors swung wide. Daniel stepped out into the throne room once more, his face damp with sweat, but his eyes steady. The court erupted in stunned disbelief. No human should have endured. No alien ever had. Princess Auralia, still veiled, sat straighter than she had in years. Beneath the shimmering threads, her heart raced, not from fear, but from hope. This human had done what none of her kind had dared. The throne room was fuller than ever before. Nobles pressed shoulder to shoulder, their jeweled robes glittering in the crystalline light. Foreign ambassadors stood in cloaked clusters, some whispering wagers that the human would fail, others smirking in anticipation of Calith's humiliation. Servants lined the walls, silent but wide-eyed, eager to witness history. At the center of it all stood Princess Auralia, draped in her eternal veil. The silver-white threads shimmered like falling starlight, hiding her face as they always had. Yet for the first time in decades, she did not feel small beneath it. Somewhere deep within, she carried a fragile, flickering hope. Across the chamber, Daniel Hayes walked forward. His Earth uniform looked plain in comparison to the jeweled finery. Around him, yet his presence commanded more attention than any noble's regalia. He walked like a soldier, steady and unflinching, his gaze fixed on the dais where the emperor and his daughter sat. He had endured the trials, and that fact alone had already carved his name into Calith history. But this was different. This was the true bond. The murmurs rose like a tide as he approached. "This is madness," one noble hissed. "A human cannot, must not, sit beside our heir," another snarled. "He will falter here. They all do." Emperor Valen raised his hand, silencing the chamber. His voice carried like rolling thunder. "The trials are complete. The human has endured what no other has. Now the vow must be spoken, and the veil will judge." Daniel stopped at the foot of the dais, standing before Auralia. The distance between them seemed at once impossibly small and impossibly vast. He could see only the shimmer of light through her veil, the faint outline of her form. Yet his voice was steady as the Emperor recited the words. "Daniel Hayes of Earth," the Emperor intoned, "do you swear to bind yourself to Princess Auralia of the Calith? To stand beside her in honor and peril, in triumph and ruin, in life and death?" Do you swear without seeing her face, without knowing what lies beyond the veil? The hall held its breath. Dozens of suitors had stood here before, their mouths drying, their courage faltering, their voices cracking into silence. Daniel did not pause. "I swear it." The words rang out, simple and unwavering. They echoed across the crystalline chamber, like a hammer striking steel. Gasps swept the hall. Some nobles cursed under their breath. Others whispered in disbelief. The emperor turned to his daughter. "Princess Auralia, do you accept this bond?" Silence stretched. The weight of generations pressed down upon her. She could feel the eyes of every soul in the chamber, some praying she would refuse, others waiting to watch her falter. For most of her life, she had been a symbol wrapped in crystal thread, a mystery used to maintain the empire's traditions. But Daniel's words in the trials still burned in her mind. "Then I'll face it. With her." Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was clear. "I accept." The throne room erupted in shouts, protests, and disbelief. Yet their cries fell, silent as the veil itself began to glow. Threads of crystal light shimmered, unraveling into the air. Slowly, impossibly, the veil dissolved, drifting away like mist. For the first time in her life, Auralia's face was revealed to the galaxy. The nobles braced themselves for horror, or beauty so great it would enslave them. What they saw was neither. Her features were delicate, striking, undeniably alien, yet undeniably beautiful. Across her skin ran faint patterns of living starlight, glowing veins of silver that pulsed softly with her heartbeat. She was not cursed. She was not monstrous. She was something more subtle, something wondrous, yet still mortal, still real. The hall gasped. Some wept. Others shouted that it was a trick, a false glamour, but Daniel did not falter, did not stare, as though in shock. He simply smiled, as though this moment was exactly as he had imagined. "Hello," he said warmly. For a heartbeat, Auralia forgot the court, the empire, the centuries of fear. Her lips curved into a smile, small, trembling, but real. "Hello, Daniel." That simple exchange hit the chamber harder than any speech. For the first time in living memory, the veiled princess smiled. For the first time, she was not a myth, but a person, seen, accepted, cherished. The emperor rose to his feet, his voice carrying across the stunned silence. "The veil has fallen. The bond is sealed." The nobles erupted once more, some in fury, some in awe, some in despair. But none could deny what had happened. A human had done what no caliph had dared. The heir was unveiled, and the empire would never be the same. The following day, the great hall of the Nahlari Palace thrummed with anticipation. Word had spread across the city like wildfire. The veiled princess was to undergo the test of shadows with the human. For generations, this test had been the ultimate trial of worthiness, a ceremony that measured courage, willpower, and one's true self. When confronted by the hidden terrors of the mind, for the Nahlari, even the bravest warriors often faltered. Only a rare few could withstand the illusions of the shadows without breaking. To risk it, without ever seeing the princess's true face, was madness to the onlookers. To them, Marcus was already a fool. Yet, as he stood tall in the dim torchlight of the ceremonial chamber, his calm eyes betrayed no fear. The chamber doors closed with a resonant thud. In the center, Princess Kaelin knelt, veiled as always, while the High Seer prepared the ritual. "The test will show what lies beneath your spirit," the seer warned, his voice echoing against the carved stone walls. "Once entered, neither strength of blade nor speed of body will serve you. Only truth of self can prevail. Fail, and the bond shall be broken forever." Kaylin's gloved hands trembled slightly as she glanced toward Marcus. She had seen warriors scream and beg for release during this test, some never to recover from. The illusions. To force a stranger, an alien no less, into it seemed cruel. Yet Marcus met her hidden gaze with a steady nod, as if silently saying, "Trust me, Dot." The ritual began. Incense filled the chamber, thick and cloying, the smoke swirling, like living tendrils. The floor beneath them shimmered, and in an instant, the world around Marcus and Kaylin dissolved into darkness. Dot. At first, there was silence, then a whisper, low, taunting, slithering. "You do not belong here, human." The shadows took form. Monstrous shapes, their eyes glowing with malice. They towered over Marcus, their claws reaching for his flesh. One hissed, "You think yourself brave, yet you are nothing but prey." Marcus drew no weapon. He had none. Instead, he took a slow breath, his voice steady. "I've seen worse in my nightmares." The illusions pressed harder. Scenes from his past materialized, battlefields littered with corpses, faces of comrades, lost in Earth's long wars. The air stank of blood and smoke. Kaylin watched in silence, unable to intervene. She saw the strain in Marcus's clenched jaw, the flicker of pain in his eyes. Yet, he did not falter. Dot. Then the illusions turned crueler, targeting his bond. A veiled figure stood before him, but when he reached for her, the veil slipped away, revealing not Kaylin, but a twisted, monstrous visage. The shadows laughed. "This is what you seek to bind with. Hideous, damned, unworthy." Marcus froze for only a heartbeat. Then he laughed. A sound so genuine, so human, it made even the illusions hesitate. "Face or no face, monster or not," he said. "I didn't step forward because of beauty. I stepped forward because no one else would. That's enough for me." The shadows recoiled as if struck. The battlefield melted away, the monstrous laughter fading into silence. Kaylin stared at him, her heart racing. His words were not the rehearsed vows of alien suitors. They were raw, unpolished, and yet they carried more truth than any she had ever heard. Dot. But the test was not over. The darkness condensed, and a single towering figure emerged, a mirror of Marcus himself, yet twisted, his eyes hollow, his mouth curled into contempt. "You claim to protect her?" the shadow double sneered. "But are you not just another man desperate to prove himself? What do you seek, human? Power? Glory? Or is this all just pity for a veiled, cursed woman?" Marcus's jaw tightened. He stepped forward until he stood face to face with his shadow. "I seek nothing but to stand beside her," he said firmly. "If that's pity to you, so be it. To me, it's choice." The shadow stared for a long moment before shattering like glass, dissolving into nothing. Dot. The chamber returned. The smoke cleared, the floor solid once more. The High Seer's voice trembled with awe. He has passed. Never have I seen the shadows break so quickly." Kaylin's veil quivered as she exhaled, her body weak with relief. Marcus, though weary, smiled faintly at her. "Told you I'd manage," he whispered. Dot. For the first time in centuries, whispers of possibility stirred among the Nalari. Perhaps this human was not a fool. Perhaps he was something far more dangerous, something the galaxy had long underestimated. Dot. And, for Kaylin behind the veil, a flicker of warmth bloomed. For the first time, she wondered if she might dare to hope. The great hall of Velara had never been so silent. Thousands of eyes, alien nobles, courtiers, warriors, and emissaries, remained fixed upon one figure, Ethan Walker, the human outsider, who now stood at the center of the ritual platform. Across from him was Princess Kalaira, the veiled daughter of Velara's throne, her presence heavy with both mystery and expectation. Dot. The silence was not empty. It was charged with centuries of taboo. No one had dared attempt what Ethan was about to do. To bond with the veiled princess meant pledging life and soul without ever seeing her true form. Every alien who had come before had faltered, their courage crumbling before the weight of uncertainty. To choose without knowing was to risk shame, ruin, or death. But Ethan was human, and humans, the galaxy was beginning to learn, played by different rules. Kelaira's hands trembled beneath her veil. The soft fabric shimmered under the light, hiding the sharp ridges of her alien features and the strange glow of her eyes. For years, she had carried the burden of being veiled, a royal tradition said to protect both her and the one who would dare bond with her. Yet beneath the custom lay a darker truth. Her people feared that anyone who saw her true face might recoil. She remembered the countless suitors who had come, warriors and diplomats of renowned races, all boasting bravery before shrinking back. Some had demanded to see her face before committing. Others had faltered mid-ritual, unwilling to gamble their lives on faith alone. Not this human. Ethan had listened to the ceremony's instructions, had stood calmly while the officiant recited the ancient words. When asked the binding question, "Do you pledge to bond with one unseen, to trust what lies beyond the veil?" He hadn't hesitated. His answer had been a simple, confident yes. And now the final moment had arrived. The officiant, an elder of Velara whose scaled skin gleamed like obsidian, turned toward Ethan. His voice, deep as rolling thunder, carried through the hall. "Human, you may turn away. You may step back. None will shame you if you refuse. To proceed is to bind yourself for life, to one whose form you may find strange, whose essence you cannot undo. Do you still accept?" Ethan's gaze never wavered. He looked at Kelaira, not the veil, but through it, as if the fabric was nothing more than mist. His lips curved into that small, disarming human smile that had so unsettled the court throughout the trials. "I don't need to see her face," he said. "I've already seen her strength. That's enough." The hall gasped. Aliens accustomed to contracts, calculations, and conditions could not fathom such reckless certainty. But to Kelaira, those words struck deeper than any blade. The ritual crystal at the platform's heart pulsed with light. Ethan reached forward, placing his hand upon it. Kelaira followed, her delicate fingers brushing his. The warmth of his touch shocked her. It was grounding, real, alive in a way she hadn't expected. The crystal flared, sensing their intent. Threads of energy arced around them, weaving an unbreakable bond. In that instant, Kelaira felt his mind brush against hers, open, steady, without hesitation. He offered trust, not because he had proof, but because he chose to. And the veil dissolved. Gasps rippled through the chamber as the enchanted fabric melted into light, revealing Kelaira's true form. Her face bore the angular beauty of her kind, ridged and luminous, eyes glowing with an inner fire that had long frightened her people. To her, it was the unveiling of her most vulnerable self, the moment she had dreaded since childhood. But Ethan only smiled wider. "You're beautiful," he said simply. No flinch, no recoil, no hesitation, only acceptance. Kelaira's breath caught. Centuries of rejection, of doubt, of shame, all shattered in that instant. She was seen fully and not feared. The elder declared the bond complete, his voice trembling with awe. "The ritual is sealed. The human has done what no other dared. The veiled princess is no longer veiled." Shockwaves spread through the court. For the first time in generations, the ancient taboo had been broken, not by one of their own, but by an outsider. Already whispers filled the air. Humans do not fear. Humans do not hesitate. Humans choose. Ethan turned to the stunned assembly. You all feared the unknown, but where I come from, we know the unknown is where the best things usually hide. That's why we step forward. The aliens exchanged glances, unsettled yet intrigued. In a galaxy of caution, humanity's reckless faith was a terrifying, inspiring force. As the ceremony ended, Kalira stood at Ethan's side, her unveiled face radiant with a new kind of strength. For the first time, she did not feel like a secret, to be hidden, but a sovereign to be recognized. And she owed it to the human who had dared when no other would. History would record this day as more than the bonding of a princess and a stranger. It would mark the moment when humanity introduced the galaxy to their most dangerous weapon, unshakable trust in the face of fear. Kalira whispered to him as they left the platform, her voice trembling yet sure. You didn't just bond with me, Ethan. You changed my people forever.